All right, this is episode 2 of Whole Lotta Holtz. Today we're talking about the early days of Holtz Leather. I'm joined here with my daughter, Faith. She is my second, and are you second?
Second.
Second. She's the second of our 11 children. She's here to join us because she was here with us in the early days when we were starting in our basement, the Holtz Leather Company, which is now a much larger company than then. We employ at the current, I think, around 50 people. Peak last year, I think we employed around 80 people. So we've really had some incredible growth over the last 6 years. Very grateful for that. But I want to go back a little bit and kind of talk about our family dynamic, and family business, because I think that's something that our country needs more of is family business. I think it's a way to, if done with the involvement of everybody in the family, I think that it can be a great source of growing your family, spending time together. Honestly, I mean, we spend an enormous amount of time together just brainstorming ideas, talking about the day, talking about what our goals are, talking about, like right now, I mean, we're currently talking about Chattanooga, and we're discussing it as a family about opening a second retail store in Chattanooga. We found a great spot within the last month that's in Chattanooga on Warehouse Row, which is a beautiful building. And we've put a letter of intent on it, and we're going to go up there as a family, and we're going to go look at it this weekend and see if it's a possibility for our family business. And I think that we need more family businesses in the United States. I think they're just what's needed, and I think it can be challenging because business itself can be challenging. So there's a lot of different dynamics that go into it, and we hope to hash out some of those. But let's go back to kind of where it all started. I've been an entrepreneur since I was a boy. I mean, really since 8, 9, 10 years old. I've done everything from lemonade stands to paper routes to mowing yards. I lived on a military base growing up, and so I would bounce around to all these little tiny yards, and I remember charging, I don't know, $5-10 at the time per yard to mow a yard, and I'd rack up some good money, and money was my driving force. I mean, that's what really made me that was my motivation. My motivation was money, and I loved money. I loved the ability to spend money. I loved what money could get me. It was usually CDs or a boombox or some piece of tech, new Game Boy. Or
Boombox.
a boombox is a stereo that you could play cassettes in, that you could take outside. You could put batteries in it so it could go anywhere you went.
Is she the generation that didn't know what a boombox is? Have we gotten to that point where people don't know what a boombox is?
We've gotten to that point.
Jeez.
It's like when I was in high school, we had pagers, and even before that, I mean, we didn't have anything. But I remember getting my first cell phone. I was in college. But anyways, getting off topic. And money was my motivation and my driver. And I remember I went to college. I kind of did what the world tells you to do. You got to go to school, and I took on student loans and student debt, which is what the world tells you to do. Let me tell you right now, don't do it. Make sure you pay for your school if you're going to go. And I don't want to discredit college either. So I don't want to sit here and say that college isn't the right direction. It just wasn't the right direction for me. I think I did learn some things from college that have been applicable in business, especially like accounting classes, some of the business management. But really, I would say that I gained a lot of my business experience from just doing, working. I worked in UPS early on when I was in college, and I worked myself into a management trainee position and then worked into manufacturing. So I learned how to do the manufacturing side as a supervisor, as a manager. I learned how to manage people. So much more experience on the job than I was ever getting in class. And I got to a point where I was just like, okay, there's really no more value for me inside of school outside of getting the piece of paper, which right now I'm sure there are people screaming at this podcast right now. You got to have that paper. We've done okay without it. And there are several other businessmen that have done well without it. Now, I do think college has its place, and I think that it does. It is for some people. It just wasn't for me. In my third year, my junior year of college, I quit. I moved back to our hometown of Huntsville, Alabama, where I knew I wanted to have my own business. We started an eBay business in the early days of eBay. So this is when eBay was really in its infancy, probably around the 2001 time frame. I was building a business around repairing laptops. So I would buy laptops on eBay. I would get them in, and I would put hard drives in them, hard drive caddies, and just put new operating systems on them. And then there was this one day where I bought this laptop, and I don't remember what kind of laptop it was, but I needed a hard drive caddy for it, and I couldn't find one. And finally, I found one, and I was like, it was like $50 just for the hard drive caddy. And I don't think that I was going to be able to sell the laptop for more than $250-$300. And I went out to Colleen. I was telling her, I've got this computer. This is the caddy. It's going to eat up all of our margin. All of our profit's going to be gone just by buying this one caddy. And she looked at me and she said, well, just tear it apart and sell it for parts. And it was like this light bulb moment. And it was like, oh, I immediately ran into the house. I took the laptop completely apart, which is what every boy wants to do. You want to go in and tear something apart. I tore the whole thing apart. All of a sudden, we had a keyboard, we had a screen, we had an LCD inverter, we had a motherboard, we had framing, we had all these parts. So I started taking pictures and put them on eBay. And that laptop that I bought for maybe $50 to $100, we ended up selling for over $1,200. It was like, okay, I can do this. So I started buying laptops on eBay and selling the parts, bringing them in, stripping them all down to parts. And over the course of 4, 5, 6 years, I built this business into a mega laptop parts business through the platform eBay. I think 5 or 6 years later, we were in the top 100 all-time eBay sellers on eBay. It was doing very well. I was very, very successful. And thing about business that can really affect you, and what was driving me was success, was that, and it may have had a lot to do with this world's mindset of that you had to go to college. And I think I was still battling that because I didn't have my degree. And so, any conversation you go where you're meeting people, they're like, hey, I mean, Faith, you experience this. When you meet somebody for the first time, what do they ask you?
What are you doing for school?
Yeah, where are you going to school? What are you going to do? And it's like, and it was the same thing. And so people would meet you for the first time. It's like, so what do you do for a living? It's like, well, I sell on eBay. And they're like, oh, you can make a living doing that? And I think my pride was so big at that time that it kind of hurt me a little bit. And I was like, yeah, dude, I sell X amount on eBay right now. What do you think of that? No, I wasn't that ugly about it, but you kind of feel that way. Like, yeah, I didn't fit the mold that you liked. I didn't go to college. I didn't get the piece of paper, but I'm doing all right. And it's just like, and then people were like kind of surprised, but anyways, there was a lot of pride in my heart, and there was a lot of this feeling of I made myself successful. And I remember Colleen is by far my best friend. She is my accountability partner. I mean, she keeps me on the straight and narrow, and she really helps me on all things, to include parenting. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Anyways, we were we were talking one night, and she's like, babe, I feel like you've got a lot of pride in your heart. And she's not meaning this to be mean. She's just really concerned about the condition of my heart at that time. And I go out every single night, and I walk our road, and I pray, and I just ask the Lord for wisdom and guidance on how to be a better father, and how to be a better husband, and how to be a better businessman, how to get the things that I want. This was part of my selfish prayers. And I remember one night when she told me this, I went out and was praying, and I said, Lord, I just pray that if I'm prideful, that you do whatever it takes to humble me, because ultimately I just want to do your will, and I want to be a servant to the Lord and to my family. And that weekend we had a trip planned to go up to
Gatlinburg?
Oh yeah, thank you, Gatlinburg. And we were up in Gatlinburg, and I remember my wife was expecting was it our fourth child or fifth? Do you remember? Levi. So it was our fourth. It was before Levi. We were expecting our fourth child. And so we were up in Gatlinburg, and I got a phone call, and it was from PayPal, and this is 2008. And PayPal's like, hey, due to the financial crisis, we're going to freeze your assets in your PayPal account. Well, at this time, eBay primarily only used PayPal for payment processing. And so that's what all of our money funneled through. And they were going to freeze our assets and all the cash in our account. We were a cash-based business until it reached a certain threshold. And I told Colleen immediately, I got off the phone, I was like, this is not good. And it's like, we're not going to have money for a while because they wanted to build up to this level. I kid you not, it wasn't 15 minutes I got off the phone with PayPal. I got a call from eBay. And eBay at this time was allowing a buyer satisfaction rating. I think at that time it was like 5%. So what that means is that you could not have a chargeback, a negative feedback, a negative experience with a transaction. If you had 5 out of 100, that was their limit. Well, my account rep got on the phone with me and he said, hey, I just want to let you know that eBay is changing their policies and we're going to be moving from a 5% buyer satisfaction over the next 90 days to 3%. And then eventually we're going to be down to a 1% buyer satisfaction. Now, I sell used electronics to people who are trying to fix their own equipment. So we have an enormous amount of returns because people will buy something and realize, oh, it's not the right part. And so a refund would count as a negative transaction. And I remember telling my eBay rep, I was like, this is the end of the road for me. I mean, I'm not going to be able to be in business. And it was a early lesson for not being all vested in one platform that I would definitely hold to later on when we start Holtz Leather. But that same weekend, my wife and I are dealing with the news of the weekend and really feeling very, very heavy because I see the writing on the wall. It's starting to form. And that same weekend, my wife miscarries our first miscarriage. And then I'll just brief this up because a lot happens over the next 6 years, 5 to 6 years. I mean, a lot because of the type of person that I am, that I really fought against losing everything. And it's like, and really it was fighting against my own pride and my own self-made man mentality that I had. And over the course of 6 years, we ended up losing our business. We ended up had a beautiful home that we loved, and we had to short sell it. Which, if you're not familiar with short selling, it means that you sell the house for less than you owe to get out from under it before they foreclose on you. And then there's a balance that's left, and that balance can either be written off by the bank and or they could come after you and get it. We had different sheriffs approaching our doors at different times because when you get sued, you get served a piece of paper that tells you have to go to court to defend yourself. And you're in an undefensible position because you haven't paid your bills. And so sheriff after sheriff's like every time somebody knocked on the door, Colleen's running and I'm like, oh, not again. And I walk up to the door and sure enough, it's another sheriff. And, you know, it's an awkward feeling to be in we hadn't short sold our house. Yeah, here you are in a nice neighborhood. You got nice cars outside and all your neighbors are sitting there watching you from their doors, and they see the sheriff pulls up, and it grabs a lot of attention really quick. And it doesn't just happen once; it happens over and over. And they give you the paper, and you go in, and you feel less of a man, and less of a man, and less of a man, and you keep losing everything, and you keep trying to hold it all together. And we had our cars were repossessed. I had a Hummer, and I had a old 68 Camaro, and we had nice vehicles, and 2 of them got repossessed, and we had to sell our classic car that we loved to take on date night because we still maintained a date night even back then. And then it got so bad that we kept trying to reset, kept trying new businesses, and it didn't matter what I tried. We kept failing. We kept failing and failing and failing until we took a risk on a hobby farm. So this is back when hobby farming was kind of coming up and people were really interested in hobby farming. And we moved to Tennessee and still trying to fight to stay on top. And I really felt like I made who I am. And long story, but we ended up getting an eviction notice on a rental house that we were at. We were totally out of money. We had nothing, and just completely broken. 2 weeks before the eviction, we had to be out of the house that we were being evicted from. We had animals. We had horses, and we had goats. And I finally walk out on the road, and I lay out on the road, and I just cry out to the Lord. And I said, Lord, I am nothing, and I am not the provider, and I recognize that you're the provider. And from that moment, things started to change for me. I remember I don't remember if it was that same day or another day, but another day I was walking the road, and I got a text from a friend of mine that lived in Huntsville, and we were in Fayetteville, Tennessee at the time. And he said, hey, my dad's house fell through, and just curious if y'all are looking for a place to rent. And I texted him back, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And I said, yes. I was like, but we don't have any money. And he's like, well, don't worry. Dad says just come, stay in it. He just wants to put somebody in it to take care of it. And so he said, it's got 10 acres. It's fenced. You can bring your animals. And it was just like it was an answer to prayer. And we started to see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, where it's like we knew that the Lord was starting to provide a way for us. We didn't know what that way looked like. At this time, we really had no money. You know, a lot of people say, oh, we're struggling financially. It's like, this is like struggle like you don't buy deodorant and toothpaste. This is you don't have phone or internet. This is they're shutting your power off. We were talking about the possibility of living in our car. We were talking about the possibility of trying to see if we, the worst situation for us. Colleen and I are so close, and we're so close to our children that we were talking about dividing the family, and half going to live with her family and half going to live with my family, because we knew that neither family could support us. At that time, I believe did we have all 6 of our children at that time? Yeah, so we had all 6 kids at that time. So we were really, really heavy. Colleen, I had almost given up on the vision of entrepreneurship at this point. I was like, I'm getting a job. I did get a job. I worked at a leather goods company up in Tennessee, and it's really where I learned my love for leather. I saw my love for leather. I never got to really see how they produced their product. I worked in the marketing department. That was really my background, was e-commerce. And so, but I got to learn a lot while I was there. And then we ended up moving to Huntsville. Didn't ever think anything really much about it after that. We moved to Huntsville, and Colleen had started doing some research on Etsy. There was this new kind of platform I'd never heard of called Etsy, and she was researching these getting ready robes for brides when they get married. They wear these robes that have their initials monogrammed on it, and they wear them. And so Colleen's like, you should call your dad and see if we can borrow the embroidery machine, or because my dad had an embroidery machine from a business I owned previously that I sold to my dad and mom, and they used it and paid off all their debt, and then they closed the business down. So it'd been like 10 years since my dad had used the machine, and so I called my dad up, and I was like, hey, Dad, I was like, do you still have that embroidery machine in your basement? He's like, son, it's yours. Come and get it. So we went. I took a day off. I had a job at that time, so I took a day off, ran down. We got the embroidery machine. Colleen and I think the girls may have ordered some robes and had them shipped in. We didn't have the money, so we borrowed that money. I think maybe, I don't even know where we got the money, but we only had enough money to buy 4 robes. We bought 4 robes, got them in. We monogrammed them with the embroidery machine. We took a horrible picture of these robes out by a creek on a farm. It was the most random, bizarre picture ever. Anyways, we put them up on Etsy, and we downloaded the Etsy app onto our phone, and then within no time, within the same day, we heard cha-ching, and we're like, what is that? And so we went to the phone, and there was a message from Etsy that said you had a sale. And so we opened it up, and sure enough, we got a sale. And I think it was like 6 or 7 robes in a single order. So it's like a $200-$300 order. When you have no money and you see a $200 or $300 order come in, you are running and celebrating. We were celebrating. And then I kid you not, it wasn't 30 minutes later, cha-ching, 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 and it did not stop. Within a year, that little bridal robe business was doing over $1 million. And I have to thank my wife, because I honestly at that point had given up on the dream of entrepreneurship. I had given up on the thought of ever owning another business. And this was her pushing our family to dig out of our situation and to get out of it. And it was amazing to see how the family all pulled together. My girls, like, we didn't pay our children, but they were old enough to work, and they were down in the basement, and they knew. And that's another thing. We didn't hide anything from our kids. So as we're going through losing everything, we want our children to experience it with the family, because we're a family. We're not going to hide it from our kids. We're telling them what's going on. They are very aware of the situation. Do you remember those times?
I remember.
What were you feeling in those moments?
I think being on the farm and having animals, like, I was like, yes, there are struggles, but then, like, we'd go out with the animals and just be able to forget everything that was going on for a little while. And I think that was really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. But so Faith got down, and Madison and Kelsey, any of them, the kids that were old enough to work, were downstairs, and actually the younger ones were too. And we spent, I would say, most of our days down in that basement doing nothing but running the embroidery machines, and we were just sweat equity. I mean, we were just pouring it back into the business, buying more stock, more robes. We expanded into different products, just rolling the money over on top of itself while helping us get out of our situation. We started paying rent, and those type of things.
Faith, I'm curious. So for most kids that would be working, if I was working with my dad in the basement, I'd be like, all right, well, Dad, what are you going to pay me? If I'm doing any little chores outside of my normal chores, I'm like, all right, well, what am I getting out of this? I'm curious. I mean, Rick mentioned that, he's sharing everything with you guys. He's explaining, kind of what's going on, to an extent, you're still children. Did you have a different view of it then? Was it really just like, this is kind of for the family, rather than, am I going to make some money so I can go out, with friends or whatever? I'm curious just to know your kind of thought process, and also your siblings, if you know that.
Yeah. So for that, like, ever since he had the laptop business too in the basement, like, me and my two sisters, the older ones, we would be down there helping, like, ship stuff and, like, package. And I remember him being like, you be careful with those motherboards, like, wrap them tightly in the bubble wrap. And so we'd, like, I loved watching him work. For as long as I can remember, he's always, like, up late at night working. And so, like, having that to look up to, it really, like, pushed me to be able to be like, hey, this is what's expected. This is what we do. Like, I never even thought twice about, like, I don't really want to do this right now. I'm a lot like my dad, and I like to work really a lot. So
could you see that your dad was a little bit more kind of, fighting for air, rather than just new business, trying something else? Could you sense, the I don't know, for lack of a better word, just like the kind of do or die kind of nature of it?
Oh yeah, we could definitely tell. Like, there'd be days that, like, we could just see the frustration, and he'd, like, walk out in the yard and throw his coffee cup, or just walk around in circles praying and going up and down the driveway. And so we knew that it was very serious, and so yeah, we just all jumped in.
It was I mean, just hearing her say that can get me pretty emotional. They were hard times, but I can praise the Lord because we were able to get out of them. We were able to dig out, and we did it as a family, which was completely different than what the business I had before, which it was really about me. And this was not about me. I was dependent upon my family to help. And I started to see business in a different light. I started to see this could be a heritage, something that we could do as a family together. And I really started valuing the time down in the basement shipping boxes together, or trying to figure out a piece of equipment, or or answering emails together and talking about customer service and talking about how to give the best customer service, how to engage with people, to think of others greater than yourself. So it's these life lessons that you're doing side by side while you're growing your business. And the Lord was generous and allowed it to just grow rather rapidly, to a point that we started thinking about these things. And we all knew that embroidery was not, goes back to this passion thing. Embroidering robes is not something I'm passionate about. But I was passionate about getting out of debt. I was passionate about paying people off, and that was what was driving me, was to get out of it and to in a sense save our family. And so I knew that I wanted to do something different, and I remember my days at that leather company, and I remember working there and how that was very much a heritage type business. I don't think of importing robes from China as a heritage business, as a business you want to do with your family for the rest of your life. It may be, and maybe there are some that would like that, and that's okay. I'm not knocking embroidery. We still own that business to this day, and it still does really well. We love it. But I wanted something that I had full control of the quality. We had full control. I say let me rephrase, because it's not it's we. We as a family had full control of the quality of the product, that we made everything in-house. And that way we could take a lot of, I don't even like to use the word pride, but we took a lot of care in the product that we created, and that it would be something that we would treasure as well when we made it. And so I remember one December, I woke up in the middle. Well, I didn't wake up. I was working late. I always work late. I'm sitting in the bed, and Colleen's already asleep, and I wake her up. I'm like, hey, babe, I know what we're going to do. She's like, what are we going to do? It's like, we're going to make leather goods. And she's like, I know. And then she rolled over and went back to sleep. I was like, well, I don't know how she knew, but I know. And that weekend, like that night, I got on and I found a sewing machine, because I've never stitched anything in my life. I found a sewing machine in Chattanooga, or actually, I'm sorry, it was in Knoxville. And on Craigslist, a big, beefy, brown sewing machine, because I thought, okay, if I'm going to sew, it's got to be a manly sewing machine. It's got to have, and this thing had a gear shifter. It had pedals, 2 pedals. I thought one was a brake and one was a gas pedal. I don't know. But anyway, so I traveled up to Knoxville, picked this machine up, brought it home. It came with some sample leathers. Well, I started touching these leathers, and all of a sudden my hands broke out in this horrible rash from the leather. It like burned my skin, and I was like, is this the end of the leather dream for us? I mean, here I buy this machine, and the leathers, and I flipped over the leather, and I saw the leather was from China. And so I kind of wondered to myself, so I started doing some research, and I got on Google, and I was like, can leather burn you, that type of thing. And I saw that some leathers, how they are tanned, can have a lot of chemicals in them, and it can really affect your skin. And it ended up breaking out my skin. So I tried finding some leathers made in the USA, and I actually found some up in I think a Tandy up in Nashville. So we went up to Nashville, got some leathers, and brought them down, and they didn't have the effect. So I was like, whew, we're okay. We can still do leather. And then we started the process of teaching ourselves how to sew. We taught ourselves how to personalize. We taught ourselves how to cut, how to stitch. I mean, everything we taught ourselves. We bought books on Amazon. We just, as a family, started pouring our family into the process of learning, because we knew we wanted to be experts. And it took a while. In fact, our very first leather product wasn't even a stitched product. It was a keychain, a simple keychain with just a rivet, because at that time I didn't have confidence in stitching. I realized that manly sewing machine that I bought with the gear shifts, I was gonna. It was an overkill for the type of products. It was the wrong machine.
But
so
we still sell that keychain.
We do still sell that keychain. We call it the
Tucker
keychain, and Faith riveted many of those in our basement. And at this point, we're still in our basement. And we know that we don't want to take debt this time around. We're still at the same time running our heritage wedding business. So we're burning the candle at all ends. So understand this too, that business, when you own your own business, you're never out of work. You're never not working. I mean, if you're at the dinner table, you're talking about it as a family. If you're out driving around in the car, you're talking about it as a family. If we're on date night with my wife, we're talking about business. This becomes your life. And so I knew this as part of our family dynamic is like, okay, we still have to be a family. How do we blend all these things together to make it work well? That's a different episode. We'll talk about that later. Right now, we're talking about the infancy of Holtz. So we started teaching ourselves. I remember I prototyped our very first wallet. I brought it up to Colleen. I mean, I spent all day long cutting, sewing, designing, learning Photoshop. I taught myself how to use Photoshop, how to use Corel, how to use different programs, how to do everything. And anyways, I spend all day, and I mean all day, working on this wallet. I run it up to Colleen and I show her, and I'm like, babe, I got us a wallet. We're ready. And she looks at it and she says, that is ugly. Start over. And I remember just that sinking feeling of like, that failure feeling of like,
sinking feeling. It was anger.
Okay, Colleen. Yes, I was angry over the wallet. I was mad. When things don't work out the way I want, my initial reactions is anger. I was mad. And so I may have even threw the wallet. I don't remember. But anyways, I stormed back downstairs and I started over. And we ended up creating a product that we did finally, Colleen finally approved, and we went up with, and it became a big seller. And then it just started growing. But we took the profits because we knew we didn't want to take debt. So we took everything that we started making from Heritage Wedding, and we started turning it over into buying leather equipment, and paying for marketing, and doing all this to grow this leather business. That being the heritage business that we wanted to grow. That being the end goal in mind. I remember when we hired our first employee. I remember bringing her into our basement. There's some funny stories I could tell you about the people coming to work at our basement. But anyways, I remember walking her back to this little room where we had 2 or 3 cowhides, and we're like, yeah, we're going to do leather one day. This is what we're working towards. And it's interesting. She actually still works with us today. She does some weekend work for us, 6-7 years later. But that first initial thing of like, this is where we want to be. And that's what we worked on. We made that our goal, and we started pouring everything back into it. And it wasn't long. We ended up having to get a building. We had 4 or 5 people, I think up to 6 people working in our basement at Doug Hill. Is that right? About 6 people? Mm-hmm. Working in the basement at Doug Hill. And then from Doug Hill, we...
it's not Doug Hill.
Oh, I'm sorry. Doug Hill's where we are right now. It was off the Parkway. We moved to a building off the Parkway.
We went from Bob Wade to the Parkway.
Yeah, Bob Wade to the Parkway. Worked there, and I think since then we've just grown out until recently. We were in 3 different buildings because our operation had spanned so many different spaces that we just recently got a space that's about 75,000 square foot. We do woodwork. We do full line of leather goods. We're starting a ceramics line where we're making pottery, handmade pottery. And all of that's going to be coming out. The pottery side is going to be coming out really heavily this year. Our millwork started with my dad being a part of our Holtz Leather business. My dad was my best man in my wedding, and to this day he is still my best friend. And he retired from the Marine Corps, and I knew I wanted to incorporate my dad into our business as being that heritage. He is the patriarch of the family and somebody that I honor and respect greatly. And he loved turning wood pens, and so he started our wood line by turning wooden pens, and the pens complemented our leather journals. And then all of a sudden the pen sales exceeded what Dad could really do, and really we still sell more pens than Dad can handle. Right now he is currently training Levi and Jacob. They are apprenticing under my dad to learn wood turning, and they're turning pins, and they're learning a skill. And now my boys are getting excited about business because they see the potential. They're sitting there working with Grandpa, and they'll come home and like, Dad, can I sell this? Can I sell this? And Mama pops in real quick, says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Did Grandpa approve the quality? We call Mama the brand protector, and I'm the let's just go. I bust through the doors, and Colleen's always there. She refers to herself as the string, and I'm the kite. Without the string, the kite can't fly, it can't soar, it can't really do anything. So that string is that resistance. It's resistance, but it keeps that kite stable in the air, and that's very much a picture of our relationship, and it really works well. You have to have that other side to complement you, to be good at what you're not good at. And I think that's something that all of my children are good at. They can complement Dad really well. Faith is a little bit more like me, and so sometimes we can be two peas in the same pod. But the boys now, they're like turning pins, and they're getting excited about selling some of their products. So they've been able to put some of their products in our retail store. And I remember when the first couple products sold, the boys come up to me and they're like, Dad, you owe us this amount of money. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's have a lesson. And Colleen's like, well, did you do the marketing? Did you do this? Did you? And all of a sudden, all these expenses that go into getting that product into the store, that it's not just that. There are many hands, many people that are involved in the process of selling that product. And so we were able to teach them a valuable lesson about profits and how small profits can be after everybody gets their hand in the cookie jar. But I did make a deal with them that trying to encourage them and teach them the importance of rolling their money back over into their business. I did tell them that I would allow them to keep 100% of what they sell in the store if they reinvested in equipment for pen making or woodworking specifically for their shop. They've now created a little wood shop in the bottom of our barn where they do some woodworking, which is really exciting to see. Yeah, any thoughts, Avery?
No, I think it's cool. I mean, when I was growing up, my dad would say, hey, like he'd pay us, like I think for any additional chores we did, whether it was cleaning, our parents' bathroom or the kids' bathroom or the garage, which was a monster of a project, but they'd pay us like $1 to clean the bathroom, which now is such a horrible deal. But I don't even think I had a concept of what a minimum wage was at the time. But I remember I asked my dad, I was like, well, how often can I clean it then? So you can clean it like every day if you want. Like, and you'll pay me $1? He's like, yeah. And it'll be cleaner every time you do it. Like, it'll be easier to clean. I'm like, oh yeah. All right, yeah. And then he said, he's like, for any job you do around the house, like for us, if you put it towards something, that you're saving for, that we also agree is a good thing to save for, he's like, we'll double your money. Which nice. $2 now to
that is nice.
But like, so it was a really cool thing. I mean, of course, when I get to the point where I'm 16 and get a job and then realize taxes and savings and tithing and all this stuff, I'm like, all right, well, I'm getting about 15% of what I make for my own personal stuff, because I'm also saving up, for a religious mission and all these other college and all this stuff. So I get like next to nothing, and I'm like, oh man, this is rough. But at the same time, it helped me understand, the value of money, what I'm working towards. I think anyway, there's a lot of things that I can trace back to, how my parents, kind of explained, money and work to me. So that's really cool hearing that, especially them, now contributing, to the family business, being able to, to put that in the stores, and then, for you to teach them, hey, look, taxes and all the overhead, everything that goes into this, you can't just take, the whole thing. But in this case, since I am in a position to do so, we can do it as long as, you are furthering, your own craft, which I think is great.
Yeah. I do too. Faith here, she does a lot of Faith's done a little bit of everything in the company. As I've mentioned, she's run an embroidery machine. She was our early debosser when we were personalizing our leather. We had this we don't use this machine anymore because it's completely inefficient. And you learn this as you go through business of failures. I like to call them failures, as failures teach you about business. But anyway, she could pretty much do anything in the company. She's learned to stitch. She can edge coat. She can click. She can do just about anything and everything. She's sharp. But right now, she's currently our purchaser in the company. We've gotten so large that we actually have a position now for doing nothing but just purchasing products that the company needs to continue operations. So she does a phenomenal job. She's a blessing to have, and who knows where she'll end up one day. But she's doing a great job now, and we're proud of her. But anyways, thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to follow us. We love to tell stories. We tell one thing we're very transparent, and we always have been. We're transparent with our kids, and we're transparent on social media as well. What you see is what you get, and that's one thing about that I've learned after losing everything is like I realized earlier I was different people at different places. If I was at work, I was one person. If I was at church, I was one person. If I was at home, I was a different person. And that doesn't flow well when you own a family business. It's like you really and as a person in general, you really need to be the same person everywhere. And so what you see, if you see us on Instagram and we're telling stories, it's real. It's not fluff. It's not marketing. It's who we really are as a family. It's what we truly value. We want to be transparent and authentic. We want to be real, and we want you to know who you're doing business with, that we are a real family and we really care about what we do. And so please take the time, follow us, subscribe to our podcast. This is our second episode. Who knows how many we'll do? We'll just go until people just get disinterested, but maybe we'll have something of value to share, and comment if you'd like to hear anything more specifically. But definitely be sure to follow us on Instagram. We do tell a lot of our family story on there. Holtz Leather Co. on Instagram. Thanks.